What is going on, guys? Welcome in to the Creed of Crypto podcast. We have, as you can see, a third head here yet again this week. Rags to Riches is with us this evening. We got a lot to talk about. Boi Crypto here with you. Crypto Ewok here as always. A big show tonight. If you guys check the thumbnail, we are going to get deep into everything that is going on with the SEC right now. Gary Gensler on full display all over Twitter, X, whatever today. Some very entertaining videos indeed. We're going to get into that. Some of Richard Hart's recent tweets, how he is kind of coaching and talking about what attorneys may do in the face of some of this, action against cryptocurrency with the government right now. We're going to get into a whole bunch of topics and how it affects our little ecosystem here within PulseChain and Hex as well. Hit us up in the chat. Hit the like on the way in. We want to hear you guys' comments all throughout the show. But gentlemen, Rags, our special guest, Ewok, we'll get to you as well in a minute. But Rags, how are you feeling this evening? Thank you for joining the show tonight.
Yeah, guys, I like to tell people this if I'm on here for the first time. I'm honored that you would ask me to be on your stream. I understand as a content creator how important it is. So I very, very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Very
for
much
being
appreciate
here.
you.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming here as well. Ewok, how are you feeling this evening? We got a slight pullback in the markets here today. Not too much, but with the PulseChain ecosystem, a bit of a pullback. How are you feeling about the markets? How are you keeping up with things?
Still in the same place, man. We're doing a whole bunch of nothing. So it's muddling through the bear.
Yeah, just kind of commiserating and like that. That's the interesting thing about a lot of these streams. I was watching Matty Allen's last night with Crispy and I always forget like who the panel is each week, but Toby and Johnny. Chaos. How could I forget Johnny? But just like 3 hours, they went in real deep last night, and it's just real good to kind of get everybody's thoughts on all of these things that are going on right now. But first off, I just want to go slightly off script, Ewok, with what we had beforehand, just because of Gary Gensler being in front of Congress today. He got lit up again by the chair of the House Financial Services Committee, Patrick McHenry, the guy in the bow tie. If you saw those clips, he lit him up pretty well, threatened a subpoena against him. We saw all of our favorites. I always forget his first name, Tom Emmer, I believe, from Minnesota. Ohio representative that I always forget his name as well, Warren Davidson. What did you make, Rags, of what you saw today? Because Ewok and I were going back and forth, and man, I'll tell you, Ewok, I'll just quote your comment to me. Gensler, some of the video clips we saw today, it was like, is that new? Is that a new one, or is that something from like a year ago? So more of the same, but what do you make of this, and how hot of a seat is this guy on right now?
Yeah, as much of a spectacle that most of the Republicans are making, and some Democrats, but mostly Republican, I don't think it has any bite to it, unfortunately. I think that this is virtue signaling to the American public who are involved in crypto to say, hey, we're going to, raise a stink about it because you've been blowing up our emails and our offices and our staffers and this and that. But ultimately, I believe that their hands are tied until the new president comes in, whoever that may be. So, typically it takes about 4 months for a new SEC head to be kind of sworn in. And I don't think we're going to be seeing much until then, personally.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could get some actions in on the whole, what are they looking at? A cabinet of type people, a group of people. They said a group of 6, no more than 3 of either party to help make the decisions. I mean, that would be nice if we could at least get that pushed through. But I agree with you. I don't see very much moving forward.
Well, it's all crazy anyway. I mean, think about this. Think about the conflict of interest that you have. Somebody previously from Wall Street who was in Goldman Sachs is now the head of the SEC. And some would say, oh, well, Rags, that's actually a really good thing. The vast wealth of experience that they have. Awesome. Okay, well, that's cool. What about all their buddies? What about all the friends that they've done business with over the years? And not only that, like you look back into Gensler's, he was the treasurer for the Democrat Party in Maryland. Okay, he's pretty much, prior to January 1st, it wasn't actually Gensler who was doing the talking. It was actually Elizabeth Warren doing the talking for Gensler.
Yeah.
And as soon as Gensler came on scene, January 1st, Elizabeth Warren kind of disappears in the background, and now it's Gensler. those two are thick as thieves. They're parroting the same type of stuff. I know Elizabeth Warren doesn't have the acumen or IQ to be able to talk about the things she was talking about. So it had to come from somewhere. We knew that they had tons of meetings. You saw Maxine Waters toeing the line, just doting all over him today. And guys, it's just disgusting. It's all the same stuff. And we just got to deal with it for a while. We're in the thick of what we've been begging for, which is clarity. Well, here it is.
Yeah. Yep. Wasn't there also a backstory of Gensler and I forget what her name is, Caroline from FTX ordeal? Her dad from MIT. I think there was a connection there as well. So it goes really deep. It's bad.
Yeah, and regardless, I'd say regardless of your, well, I'm not going to say regardless. My political leanings indicate that if I have somebody who's in politics that is a product, part and parcel of the academic system in America, anytime from 1960 onward, I'm going to automatically assume that their mind is destroyed. Okay. And I'll tell you this, one of the big keys and giveaways, I don't know if you guys caught this. I think it was probably about a month ago. He gets on one of these morning shows, finance morning shows, and he refers to Satoshi Nakamoto as a her. Did you guys hear that?
Oh, no. Man. No, I didn't see that one. No.
All right, you look that one up. That's how you know his mind's compromised. Not only did Satoshi Nakamoto refer to himself as a he, but everybody referred to him as a he. There's proof of it, but he's not sure. So he's going to, again, virtue signal to the political left and use the term her, use the pronoun for Satoshi Nakamoto. Screw that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Zimzer or something like that. I'm not sure.
I
think there was also, I don't know if it was Maxine. No, it wasn't Maxine Waters. Somebody in one of those meetings today referred to Bitcoin as Bitcom actually as well. That, like, literally not knowing Bitcoin, which is pretty funny.
Well, yeah. No, I mean it's crazy because we know that these Congress people, we know these representatives don't know shit about DeFi whatsoever. But we also know Charles Hoskinson went up on Capitol Hill late last year, and he said he got word that there are Bitcoiners that are actively working with these Congress people to create legislation to destroy DeFi. So this has been happening, okay? I think it goes past just hobbyists or Bitcoiners or fanatics. I think it's more tailored towards Wall Street and the business and services that they want to provide, and they want to push out competition, and they're willing to weaponize the legislative system to do so.
Yeah. Tom Emmer, I think it was today, said exactly that about Gensler, that, you know, is your lack of clarity really to attempt to continue to line the pockets of the incumbent system? Like, they don't want this kind of transfer of wealth, and they don't want to provide any kind of clarity for that exact reason. Well, let me ask you about this. So the thing that Ewok was referencing earlier, so Warren Davidson, the Republican representative from Ohio, has been talking about this idea of, basically, I mean, it would end up firing Gary Gensler, which I think everybody's pretty much in favor of at this point, but removing him and essentially having, it already is a panel other than him. I mean, there already are, I guess, 5 other individuals, but basically it would be a panel of 6 people, no more, it basically split down the middle, 3 from each side of the aisle. I mean, what do you think the chances are of something like that getting passed? Because I really agree with you, Rags. I mean, I think we're at the mercy of just the next election at this point, you know?
Yeah, you know, will that happen? Maybe, potentially. Maybe if a Republican gets in office. But even then, guys, you know, I'm just not convinced that our political system has our best interests at heart. And I'm not sure if changing that structure is going to bring about any significant change. You know, who's the primary person that's writing the dissent pieces? It's Pierce, right? Hester Pierce, is that her name?
Yes, yeah.
The mother of crypto or whatever. You know, one thing that I've noticed in politics is people can talk the talk until they get the power to be able to pull the strings, and they get put in that position. Sometimes people change. So one of the biggest worries that I have in all this, if they do change that structure or a new person gets in, it's always scary to think that the new person could be as bad or worse than Gary Gensler. And people don't think about that, especially in politics, man, because it's all backwards. It's all deception. It's all double speak, and you just don't know what you're going to get.
Well said. Yeah, at least Gary Gensler is kind of a useful idiot at this point. So, I mean,
well, we know where he stands. Yeah, we know where he stands. You know,
don't have to question that.
No, I didn't agree too much with Bernie Sanders last election, but I had no question about where he stood, so I respected him for that. You know,
good point. Ewok, did you want to roll on with the next question here?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to let's get into what RH has been tweeting about the last couple of days here. So, he and we're going to get more specific to the lawsuit, you know, the SEC lawsuit against him as well. But in terms of what he's been tweeting about lately, because there's been obviously he's been using Claude, Bing, these AI systems, and talking about the power of them, and I think it's good that he's doing that, especially in response to some of these propositions by the IRS, propositions by the SEC that we're seeing lately. But so the other day, and these were just tweets from a couple of days ago, and I can't pull the actual one up, but he was referencing the gross proceeds and basis reporting by brokers and determination of amount realized and basis for digital asset transactions, a mouthful, which was, I believe, the IRS proposition.
Yes.
Yeah. That was basically looks like it was initiated on August the 29th. But he was tweeting about that and the ability for people to leave comments for it. What do you make of him kind of, I'm trying to think of the best word to say here, but kind of like looking out. I mean, he would have been talking about this stuff regardless, I think, this anyway. But kind of going after these like ancillary things to what he may or may not be dealing with right now. I don't know if there's more to read into here, as there usually is with Richard.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, I think this had to do with PulseX. And the reason is this started with Elizabeth Warren's bill late last year. And then it's kind of been piled on by the IRS. I think they were in the process of creating new rules for 2 years. But it was interesting, the similarities that the IRS came out with and then Elizabeth Warren came out with. But they're changing the information reporting standards. Brokers, new definitions for brokers, including, you know, any type of digital asset trading platforms or processors. They're required to report gross proceeds from any type of digital asset transaction. And that's and if they can change the definition to include a decentralized exchange to do that, then they can require by law KYC. So that's a big type of issue. And this, you know, based on what they're saying, this effective date it'll go into play around 2025. It'll be implemented through that. Obviously, Richard's, you know, this is PulseX. This is his baby. This has something to do with the layer one. It's a big time invasion of privacy. You could argue that, you know, any sort of requirement requiring brokers to report gross proceeds, especially a decentralized exchange, is a complete invasion of individual privacy. Increased regulatory burden. So you have all this red tape that's now attached to decentralized finance. And the purpose and the mission of this is to destroy decentralized finance and to continue to feed the government. You know, people don't realize there's really only a couple ways that the government makes money. You know, a company makes money by providing goods or services. Okay, how does the government make money? Well, it makes money by printing it and taking it from you and I. So that's, again, that just slows the process down. So I would imagine if we're looking into this, I would say it has definitely big implications on PulseX.
So how do you go about doing that, though? Like, I don't even understand how you would regulate DeFi. I mean, not to give them any ideas, but it would be very difficult, I think.
So this is what I've used this a couple times on my channel, but you think about this, you run through an intersection, okay? 6 months later, they install a traffic light with a traffic camera. And they can tell that you ran that intersection 6 months ago. So they're going to retroactively send you a ticket in the mail. And that's kind of what they're going to be doing now. So if they can say that this is illegal, then at that point they can bite down on people who aren't complying, i.e. Richard Hart. They can get court orders to shut down IP addresses for PulseX. They're not going to stop it because you have multiple front ends and this and that. It's just going to make it really, really difficult. And let's be quite frank, people are going to be less inclined to touch something that has that type of baggage. It's just a market, right? Yeah. So they'll just make it really, really tough. So, and they'll go after the people who created it. We saw an example of that with Tornado.cash.
Yeah. Yeah.
We saw that 20-something-year-old developer thrown in prison in Netherlands or Finland or something for 3 or 6 months. And now the Department of Justice, 2 weeks ago, came out with charges for that kid. So they're coming after it, man, in a big way.
It's the chilling effect all over.
Yeah. And what do you make of that too? Because I mean, obviously that wouldn't just affect PulseX. I mean, there's a larger, DeFi community here. So I mean, like, what do can they really? They can't kill, like Ewok said a minute ago. You can't necessarily kill DeFi or anything because it's just code. But as far as, like you said, messing with a market like that chilling effect, how far can that go? Do you think? I mean, like, what? Will there I guess my question would be, and I don't even know if you can answer this, but will you think there will always be a strong enough appetite for this that regardless of how far these people go, that Pandora's box has already been opened, so to speak? Like, we have the product and we want it,
Yeah, I think that this is what happens. I think that they draw a line in the sand and then they force people to either comply with their demands or they regulate by enforcement and they start throwing people in jail. So sure, let's say that you're a DeFi user and you've got a bag of this, a bag of that. Okay, well, if you're going to use this decentralized exchange, you're going to need to go ahead and KYC. And if you don't KYC, then you can't participate in crypto. Okay, now there's other problems with this too. This is kind of like this is a gatekeeping, artificial gatekeeping. To be a broker, to be able to register for these things, it costs lots and lots and lots of money. So now you just pushed out a massive amount of entrepreneurial energy out of the market that may not be able to afford those sorts of things because the government came in and they're attaching red tape and they're attaching, payments and fees to even be able to get your foot in the door. So this is what the government does, man. These are the sorts of things that will spin off from this regulation.
Yeah. I want to go to what he tweeted next after that, because this one was, I think, even more relevant for what we're actually seeing and dealing with right now in real time.
Yeah.
But he had comments about agencies being lazy with their rules and being deemed arbitrary and capricious, which is exactly what the judge in I think it was the most recent, the Uniswap defeat of the SEC at the hands of Uniswap. I mean, they've lost so much recently, I can't keep track anymore. So I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the Uniswap one, where they're essentially saying the Gensler and the SEC are just kind of what we all know they're doing, throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and just seeing what sticks, in so many words. But Richard's been talking about making a relevant, substantive comment. And if they don't respond to it, they can invalidate the rule that they made, basically. And that the APA has lots of rules the agencies must follow to the letter or risk being overturned in court. He said smart lawyers are referencing those rules in some of their comments. So what do you think he's getting at here? Because I think that he's really providing a somewhat easy way for a lot of these pro-crypto attorneys or anybody fighting on behalf of crypto to respond to what we know is lazy accusations coming from the SEC.
Yeah, I think it's a call to action. I think that he realizes that we have a smart community, and embedded within the smart community, we do have lawyers and we do have, all sorts of folks that might be able to create these substantive comments to be able to go in and maybe slow the process down. This is an administrative thing. So it sounds like he's fighting on an administrative front. He's playing ball. Okay, you got to play by the rules. We can slow this thing down. And ultimately, I think really if I were him, that would be one of my key tactics and strategies right now, is to slow this whole process down, because there's so many other cases that are happening right now that are being litigated that have a massive amount of precedent and impact on what's going to be happening to us. So I think it's in his best interest to slow all this down.
Yeah, I think so too. Ewok, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think everything that he's doing is well calculated, and I agree. Slowing it down is the best course. I mean, there's really no alternative at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you got a new president coming. Slow it down. Janet Yellen's freaking 84 years old. Maybe she croaks, and then Gary Gensler gets promoted. And then, you know, we've got Coinbase court case, we got XRP, and we have a litany of others. And it's all happening real time. So I'm just slow it down. Take every opportunity you can to abuse the administrative system to get this thing to slow. And that's what I would be doing.
And he's providing all kind of documentation for those guys to assist, you know, maybe get some sort of ruling that we can set precedents to relate to this case, you know?
Yeah. I think he's again, I think he's one brain is really good. A lot of times one genius is better than 100 normies, but there's other geniuses embedded out there. So maybe they pick up on the hints here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this kind of what you're saying, Rags, about just slowing down the entire process. I mean, that's kind of what the SEC is doing to DeFi and crypto themselves too, you know, and especially with some of the just ridiculous claims against Richard as far as like specifically using sacrifice funds and I mean, really everything that they claimed. I don't even remember everything in the 28-page complaint, but we know it was riddled with errors and stuff like that. So it's kind of like their attempts to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks that they aren't even that educated on. And Richard responding to it and trying to help others respond to it in a way where we are educated on it and you're actually taking the time to, you know, and no uncertain terms actually provide real responses to these things, which they're not doing at all. Really.
So here's, you know, speaking to the lawyer, you know, what they do with all this is they create, for lack of a better term, they create layers. Okay, so maybe the first layer that they come up against, they have to be able to fight and defeat that layer to get to the next one. Okay, and the next one might be BS, but let's say Richard beats that next layer. Okay, cool. He's beat 2 layers now, but now he's got to go to the 3rd layer because again, they're throwing everything and they're trying to make it stick. So that's a tactic that's used by these lawyers and by these regulatory agencies to try to get a win. Make no mistake, they targeted Richard because it's such a high-profile thing. And they felt like they had a good chance at actually winning this. And because if they don't win this, they lose face. And if they don't win this, they can't collect the funds. And it looks really, really bad on the agency. So whatever they have or whatever they had, they think that it's significant enough to be able to defeat this man in court. You know, I asked these types of questions. I said, okay, the misspellings in the court documents and all of the, like, okay, so PulseX isn't on Ethereum, it's on PulseChain. Right. You know, part of this whole process is the courts actually allowing them to amend and change some of those things to be accurate before they move the process forward. So it's not like these things are going to cause the court case to be thrown out. Okay. And there's a lot of misconceptions about that. No, it's not about that. If they bring these charges to the forefront, if there's any sort of substantial evidence that they do have, and trust me, they haven't brought everything to the forefront. This is a game they're trying to win. You know, who knows what they got, and who knows if what they have could send this to court. I don't know, but we're gonna find out.
Well, that is a perfect transition because I wanted to ask you. So you had this interview, and I totally forgot to pull up his Twitter again. I know I followed him after you had him on your stream, but I think everybody, I don't know if enjoy is the right word. That's what I wrote down here. We appreciate that you interviewed the attorney, but I think it was definitely, I remember actually your TEXAN token cohort, Matt, Crypto Harpy, calling it a sobering interview. I think that was a perfect word for it. But he did, you know, he's an attorney and he kind of presumed, he was presuming the side of the SEC and what they'll have to prove based on what their claims are and how he would go about doing it. And all the extremes that could lead to. I'm trying to remember when that was that was pretty quickly out of the gate from the July 31st complaint. I mean, we're looking probably 6 weeks ago at least. How are you kind of feeling about that 6 weeks or so on? Because I think, everybody was kind of like, oh, Jesus, like, why did he put this stream up? And, you were I loved your attitude about it because you were very unapologetic with like, hey, I'm just, I'm just the facts, and I appreciate that. But how are you feeling now this far out of it? And how are you feeling right away, right after the interview?
Going into that interview, I sat there and guys, I've got hex bags. Okay. I'm fudding my own bags. Right. But here's the thing. I'm a strong believer that the power that we wield as a community is a power that's based in truth and not deception. And really what caused me to do this was all the craziness that I was seeing on Twitter about the, basically street lawyers saying this and saying that. And I had to get clarification now. Why? It's because when we're on Twitter, we forget that these are families. These are heads of household. They put their money in these things because they expect it to go up. Maybe they don't expect it to go up technically, but you know what I mean? It's crypto. And we have to remember that these are real people out there and they have real consideration in some of these things. And I just felt like getting the side of a real life attorney with regards who has argued all sorts of things in appellate courts and all over the United States, has a good idea of how this stuff works. We needed to get him on stream and get his opinion from the viewpoint of the SEC so people could understand 100%, no doubt, what we could be facing. And, I did get DMs. People are like, dude, you shouldn't have done that and this and that. We don't need to operate that. We're not crypto bros here. Okay. We do crypto different here. It's the truth engine. Okay. That's what Hex is. So let's go ahead and act like it and let's let people know where we stand and we're stronger for it. So, I'm glad that we got all that out because it answered so many questions that people had.
I agree with you. Yeah. And by the way, before I forget, I went ahead and looked them up. It's BitLaw at Crypto BitLaw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's got a link to his YouTube and stuff as well. But definitely a lot of sobering things did take place there. Now, you were also talking about, and made you be busy, whatever. But I'm curious as to where a lot of people were like imploring you then afterwards and wondering, if you could get somebody on that would take a look at that from potentially Richard's side. And here's the thing: I feel like that is a lot more complicated to get somebody to replicate that because, number one, the SEC, we are the plaintiff. We know what the complaint is. We know what they're saying here, that we know what they're going to have to try to prove. Richard is the defendant who is, presumably a billionaire with God knows what at his disposal resource-wise, because money does talk. How could an attorney even really – I mean, I feel like they'd only be kind of – guessing or speculating, but like, could they really dial in what his strategies may be? I don't know if maybe that's a challenge you're having in getting somebody to maybe take that other side.
Yeah, I don't actually think it would be that difficult if the attorney that we were talking to took the time to understand Hex's history. So, one of the complaints at the very beginning of that court document had to do with, wash trading, during the adoption amplifier. And what they don't realize is that there were basically two prices for Hex, and people were getting a certain amount of Hex at the end of every single day, and then some people who were trying to game the system, they would go on Uniswap where there were pairs traded, and they would basically profit off of the cheap Hex that they got in the adoption amplifier, and people were doing that until somebody, we don't know who, we might presume it might be Richard. But somebody was going in and saying, you know what, screw that. He would buy the price up or sell the price down to make sure it matched the adoption, the lobby, essentially. So it's like the court document said that was his version of wash trading to try to simulate high volume. And I'm like, if you listen to anything Richard ever has said, he's like, Hex doesn't have high volume. We don't want high volume. That means people are getting wrecked if you have high volume.
Yeah.
So it's like little things like that. And remember what I said, it's, layers or dominoes. If you can just establish a pattern of the SEC not understanding what they're talking about with these first couple layers, I think it really helps out our case. And I think that this would be, I would take this case. I don't know much about law, but I see how little they know about what they've been talking about here. And, they, even in the court documents, they said, okay, the guy used a mixer. Okay. If he used a mixer, then how can you verify that money came from him or went to his account, or that 12 million? You don't. Okay. And I'm like, just simple stuff like that. So we'll see.
Yeah, the whole misappropriation of funds is easily provable. I mean, that's what blockchain's for.
Well, so. Here's the thing: like, how are they going to prove that wasn't? Okay, so how are they going to prove that was not him actually enriching himself, and it was for marketing purposes?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take that side, but then the other side is, like, how can you prove that wasn't his own money? That $12 million, you're coming after a guy for $12 million of misappropriated funds, investor funds, and over $1 billion was raised. You freaking kidding me? It's
right.
So weak. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the weakest part of their whole complaint, because like Ewok just said, it is provable on the defense's side. Like literally, like you can see the funds are there. But even again, like you guys are saying too, I mean, even if it was actually funds, I mean, are you not allowed to profit from something that you've created and purchase something like that? And then you've got the whole marketing of the diamond idea and stuff like that. So I just, something to remember. I think Johnny was saying this on that stream with Matty Allen last night. He was saying, like, these are all, this is how you negotiate. So they come to the table with this complaint that has a lot of this complete garbage in it, like, oh, you will swear that Scout's honor you will not talk about crypto ever again, which is just preposterous, like to even attempt to enforce or anything like that. It's just, this is how you get to the bargaining table, and they're just going to throw everything they can out there first. And I think that's something that maybe some of us should remind ourselves is, like, as many things are in there, keep in mind that, again, that is how you negotiate. You start at the top, and then you realize you're not going to get hardly any of it and meet somewhere in the middle,
Yeah, he defrauded investors because he used the money in the wrong way. That's what this all boils down to. Okay, if this isn't a security, they're saying it's a security first, so that's layer one. That's step one. If they can prove it's a security, then go to step two, and they can say, okay, that $12 million shouldn't have been used to buy XYZ. Now prove, that's step two. If they can't prove it's a security in the first place, there is no misappropriation of funds, and there is no defrauding. So it's like, it's going to be interesting to see all this play out, because, I think it was Bretep, right? Richard's developer, when somebody made some post when Richard was walking through the store with his Prada bags or whatever. And I think it was some major influencer saying, Richard was buying all this stuff from the store and blah, blah. And Bretep, he gets in the comments and he says, you got any receipts? ? And I thought that was pretty substantial, because that's coming one person removed from Richard. And it's almost like saying, hey, okay, show us the receipts then. Wise guy, show us the receipts, SEC. Prove that money came there. And I think they're saying, hey, it's impossible to prove. That's what I think.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so too. So getting to what is actually coming up. So we got this thing on November the 28th, the phone conference, supposedly. I guess first off, what I'll go with first, it makes more sense to go here first, is a lot of people are pretty much 100% convinced at this point that Richard hasn't even been served. I obviously we can't say for sure, but we were talking kind of in the green room before the show, Rags, and you were kind of insinuating, based on Richard's tweets, maybe. What do you think based on kind of his behavior on Twitter for the last few weeks? And do you think they have served him? Because and let's talk about the eventuality if they are actually unable to.
Yeah, so I last time I checked, it was probably a week or two ago. I had somebody check the system. I had no indication that he had been served yet. So again, this could be playing into the whole strategy of just stalling administratively.
Right.
But he definitely has recognized that he's under some type of legal scrutiny on Twitter, because he's addressing a lot of this stuff directly head on. So maybe he has, I don't know yet. But if he hasn't been served yet, it's pretty interesting. We went over this on stream. The step 2 is the folks are going to go to the courts and they're going to say, okay, we haven't been able to find him or track him down. We can't serve him. So for lack of a better term, they have like a spec ops team that specializes in serving people. Like, I made the joke on stream that they rappel down from a helicopter, and hand you your papers. But it's like, catch you in an airport, catch you at the cafe, find out where you like. So they'll go that route. And if they still can't serve him, then they basically get, if I remember correctly, they get permission from the court to be able to serve him on Twitter, or serve him where they know that he sees these things, tag him. This precedent has already been set. CZ from Binance got served on Twitter, so they'll go that route. And that will be sufficient enough if Richard still doesn't show up to court for them to actually come after him, like, criminally.
And what do you think the chances of that are? I mean, like, I guess what I'll say is let's assume he does get served by this hearing, or whatever you want to call it. It's a preliminary phone conference. I mean, I don't even know if the defendant would show up or if it would just be counsel as what's instructed in the actual link on that court listener or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But what do you kind of, because a lot of people seem to be acting like we may get a lot of clarity that day. I don't know for sure. But it's going to be counsel, and they're going to be talking to not even the actual judge that will be seeing it. It's like the magistrate judge or something like that. To I guess for her to basically like see if there's something here to even continue on. So what do you think?
So what this is so a scheduling order is what this is called. And I've got some notes here that I brought. So it's a legal document issued by a court or administrative body like the SEC that outlines the timeline and procedures for the case. So when the SEC charges an individual with violations of any sort of like security laws, a scheduling order is issued to establish the key dates, deadlines, things like that. And amongst those, you'll have discovery deadlines. So the time frame within which both parties must complete the discovery process, exchange of evidence and information. So, the evidence that the SEC has gets exchanged over to Richard's lawyers, and vice versa, trial date, any type of settlement discussions. I'll actually go ahead and let me see if I can share this so you guys can see. This is actually a document that Richard has to fill out. All right. Let me know you guys can see that.
Yep, it's coming. There we go.
So this is the actual court document that they have to fill out in the state of New York here. You see, like, is there a settlement plan? Is the plaintiff to make a settlement demand? Is the defendant to make a settlement offer? Any type of mediation programs between two parties, deadlines, motion to join. Like, so this is basically to get all the ducks in the row for the actual court case, if there does end up being one, or if they can keep it out of court, there's an opportunity to do that here as well.
So I guess my question would be, why would counsel show up if there's been no service?
And that's the thing. Is there or isn't there?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, that may be the most determining factor of whether there has been service or not, because I don't think you would have counsel show up or someone to represent you if you haven't been served for anything yet.
So it's a call-in service. So there's a phone number, and then there's somebody that makes sure each party is there and makes sure other people are out of there that aren't supposed to be there, and then they connect them. So it'll be a call in. I was trying to get cheeky and call in myself, and maybe.
Yeah, I was wondering.
I think a lot of people want to do that.
Yeah. I thought maybe there was like a special, because I know with a lot of conference call lines, you have a special PIN number if you're a speaker.
It is, yeah.
And then there's a regular PIN number for the public to dial in and listen, which is usually could be public. I don't see why not.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. So the conference is going to be held by telephone on November 28th at 10 a.m. before Peggy Coe, United States Magistrate Judge. The toll-free number's there. They've got the access code for the time of the conference. It does say a transcript of proceedings may be ordered from the clerk's office. The parties are reminded that pursuant to Local Civil Rule 1.8, they may not independently record the court proceedings. So no request. Let's see here. Any of adjournment of this conference must be made in writing. So if they need to delay it, they will. No request for adjournment will be considered unless made at least 2 business days before the scheduled conference. So counsel with knowledge and authority must be present. Per diem counsel may not appear without permission of the court. So, I mean, there you have it. It's just like it's one of those preliminary things. Check the box, see where both parties are, see if they want to move forward, see just kind of what direction they want to go. That's what this is.
Yeah, I think it's encouraging. I mean, it also shows how slowly these wheels do grind. You know what I mean? Because this is just a preliminary thing. If we do have some kind of court date after that, we're probably looking almost March. I mean, that's just
I'd say 3 months. Yeah, 3 months.
Right. So we'll see how that goes. And Ewok, as far as what you said, I mean, if he hasn't been served, I can't imagine there's any way he's going to have anybody show up, because that would be an admittance of being served at that point. So, I mean, I can't imagine anybody would go. But I had another point on that. Shit, I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because that's I think what most people are secretly rooting for, like in this ecosystem, whether they admit it or not. Like there's people who's like, I want to see Richard fight, and I want to see him settle. And I think it's so much more nuanced than that. But it will be very interesting to see if Richard does send counsel to this thing or on the phone, and we do see that there is no court date coming, and maybe some kind of deal gets worked out. I don't know. Can you name many people that would be all that upset with that scenario? Because I think a lot of people want this to just seem like it's over, you know?
So there's a lot of different angles to this. I mean, there's so many cool stories that could stem from this. All right, so maybe the first story that stems from this is that Richard comes full character arc, and he actually does save cryptocurrency. He saves DeFi, and he goes up against the Leviathan. He goes up with his sword, his armor, and he tries to slay the dragon for everybody. And then that kind of redeems him in the eyes of all of crypto. Okay, so that's a pretty cool story. All right. What's another cool story? Okay. All of us who have watched all of his videos multiple times over the years, he always references EOS. Okay. And EOS settling for 20 mil. And, right. And it's almost like, okay, that was the answer to everything. So that's also a possibility. Now, what are the terms of that settlement? Well, that's all negotiable. Okay. So, they have everything that the SEC wants at the bottom of that court document. They want Richard to go away. They want, PulseChain and PulseX somehow to go away, or whatever the case. It's all negotiable. So that's also something else here. The other idea here is that this was planned all along, and that's why he got the black diamond, and that's why he was flexing so hard, and his mouth was so dirty for so long with all these people on stream, and he was trying to get the attention of the SEC and bait them into court, so he could say his piece and discovery could happen. One of the best things that has come out of this so far, and I've said this on a couple streams, is nowhere in that court document, after 3 or 4 years of crap that the Hexagons received, you didn't see pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, or scam anywhere in that court document. Right. Okay. From the most powerful regulatory agency in the world. So that's huge. And I'm looking for more wins. So either way, I'm okay, as long as, Richard's going to be fine. If he's got $1 billion, he's going to be fine. He's not going to go to jail over this. It's going to be a slap on the wrist. He might have to pay 0.5% of his net worth to get out of this. Richard's good. And as long as Hexagons and Pulse at large is good, I'm feeling fine. And whatever he thinks he should do to get there is what he'll do. I think he cares about all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only problem with scenario number 2 and settling this is that you still have, not that we really care, you're always going to have the haters, but them still saying, well, he just paid the fine. He's still a criminal. And I think that's kind of what he doesn't want. You know, Richard's always said, I'm in this for the glory. If you saw the documentary, he's like, man, I want to be loved. I want people to love me for making them wealthy. So I don't know. I think that's the only problem with scenario number 2.
Yeah.
Is that there's not a whole lot of clarity on whether he's doing the right thing, if this is all on the up and up, which, you know, we know it is, but the haters are going to continue to hate.
And here's dude, I'm going to tell you, dude, they're still going to say Ponzi-nomics.
Yeah,
there's still going to be the dumbass Bitcoiners out there. And here, all 3 of us on this stream are old enough to realize that if you want to make something in this world, you just got to go out and build it yourself. And as PulseChain increases in adoption and the infrastructure gets better and better because people are building, and there's more adoption into Hex, and we've got news outlets that are being built around the PulseChain ecosystem, and more stuff's coming. So what's going to happen is if you build it, they will come. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the hell they think. We're still going to crush it just like we always have. And eventually there will be kind of a tipping point. There'll be an event horizon when people dump in. And maybe in 3 or 4 years, guys, what happens, man? Green candles cause amnesia, and people are going to forget. There's going to be a holdout of the dumbass Bitcoiners that Richard hurt their feelings a while back, and they'll never forgive him, but they won't have much pull in the future, I don't think.
Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of kind of a side channel. You were in Atlanta at the Blockchain Center, right?
Yes.
I heard RG3 saying that those guys were in the Pulse community and really not a part of the YouTube, you know, family or whatever, just kind of happened upon PulseChain, and that's what they decided to build on mostly, right?
Guys, I'll tell you something, man. This is wild. So I'm giving my speech, and this guy, you know, he's just I'm quizzing the crowd and answering questions, and I got a stack of $50 and $1 bills. Every single time somebody like participates, I throw them a $1 bill. Okay, so it's fun. We're having a good time. So there's a guy there, and I get to talking to him afterwards, and he was one of the lead guys at the MakerDAO Foundation that got into Hex at the beginning when the rest of his friends wouldn't get into it. And he was like, yeah, you know, I love Hex. I love PulseChain. I've created my own project. But guys, he was in charge of LP for all of MakerDAO. That's what is that, $3 billion worth of assets locked up on there. So it's a small world. And yes, they're random Atlanta Blockchain Center. There's a bunch of people that really appreciate PulseChain because they're able to see what it is, man. It's great technology. It's as good or better than Ethereum 2.0, and it just is what it is. And people are going to come to this chain over Ethereum because it is so much cheaper. Yeah. And it actually truly is, at this point, more decentralized than Ethereum for a variety of reasons. So there's a lot of benefits to this.
Pretty cool. I just thought that was a cool story.
Yep. Yeah, and to touch on something that you guys said a minute ago, I do think at the end of the day, because Ewok, you were talking about in this decision to fight, settle, whatever with this whole SEC thing. As much as Richard has always said, like, he's in it for the glory, and yeah, that whole character arc idea and everything would be great. I do think what you alluded to, Rags, that he does care about the people that are interested in and invested in his products most at this point. I think you could really see that. This might be silly to say, but I think you could see that in that snippet that they played of him at the premiere of the Highest of Stakes movie. For anybody who, maybe hasn't seen Richard Hart since that isn't an OG, or that hasn't seen him for 5 years, 6 years or something like that now. I think just that snippet, as short as it was the real Richard Hart, I would say. If you guys remember that clip, I don't know. I can't remember if they only played it at the Miami premiere, I think. But you could just tell, I think, that he really cared about everybody that's invested in this ecosystem, I think, in that clip. So that's what I think he cares about most. So let me skip down here to this. So,
you're muted.
Yeah, he doesn't want to see his people get wrecked. I agree. He doesn't want it.
Yeah, I think that's just the most important thing. Ewok, do you want to open it up to this? Since we have a lot of ETF stuff going on, and we want to talk about BlackRock a little bit, I'm going to hand it over to you to get into that line of questioning. And before I do, everybody that is here, do us a favor, smash the like. We do this show every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hit us up with a like. Let us know that you like having Rags on the show tonight. Definitely a good conversation here for sure. And Ewok, take it away with this ETF talk here.
Yeah, so we all know that what kind of pool BlackRock has in the whole space, as generally, to get things approved and pushed through. But I think, what kind of impact do you think this is going to have if, by chance, the SEC rejects it?
I think it's likely that they'll reject it. I think there's two interesting ideas that are circulating through my head. The first idea is they push this off till Q1 of next year, which they have for just about everybody. ARK was yesterday. Mm-hmm. The halvening occurs in April-ish. Okay, so maybe one of the catalysts to kind of turn things around is maybe there's a handful of these that actually do get approved. So that'll be beneficial. Coupled with the fact that when you're looking at the probabilities for the Federal Reserve to decrease interest rates, that's happening maybe June or July of next year too. So there's a window of opportunity for some cool stuff to be happening there. Now, what's the other side of this is, I think the SEC is just trying to stall as well, because there's implications for them to be approving the spot Bitcoin ETFs that will affect their court cases. So because then you also have the spot Ethereum ETFs as well. And there's Ripple has argued in court that Ethereum, okay, if you're going to call Ripple a security, then you need to go ahead and call Ethereum as security. In fact, why don't we pull up the YouTube when you're in MIT and you're talking many, many times about how Ethereum passes every leg of the Howey test. And guess what, guys? You don't want to pass every leg of the Howey test. So I think that it's beneficial for them from a litigation standpoint, not to press the issue and to keep kicking the can down the road there.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. If Ethereum is determined not a security, and PulseChain being a fork of Ethereum, that could set some precedent too. We all know that I think the question is more the sacrifice than anything. Ethereum has had a chance to decentralize itself, over some time. PulseChain unfortunately doesn't have that. So,
well, the key term that Gary Gensler is now using is, I think he made a comment on Ethereum. He said it's now sufficiently decentralized.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't in the beginning, but now it's sufficiently. So that's kind of the play that they have there. That's how they can square it up.
Yeah, I noticed also today when he was pressed to say whether Bitcoin was a security or not, he said that it failed the Howey test, but would not just say that it was a commodity. He just said that it did fail the Howey test, though.
Yeah,
so
you gotta understand that those senators, they're trying to get talking points off of Gary so it can be used against them in court. Make no mistake.
Yeah.
And Gary Gensler knows that too. So, it's awesome for the media in Twitter, because we can chew him up and spit him out, but he's playing the game the same way everybody else is. And we got to make sure we realize that.
Great point.
Yeah, absolutely no clarity whatsoever. We don't want to be clear on anything so that we can always change it, when we feel like it.
That's right.
I forgot I wanted to ask you this. So what everybody cares about the most, price of the PulseChain ecosystem. So regardless how this SEC thing shakes out, and we kind of said this in the green room before the show, make no mistake, anybody that's listening to this right now, once we have Bitcoin and Ethereum green candles in a bull market someday is back, I think that's when we're going to see positive price movement within the PulseChain ecosystem, even more so than any kind of news on any SEC stuff. Hey, you look at what happened with Ripple, not comparing PulseChain to Ripple necessarily, but in terms of what is going on in their SEC narrative, They win their case. It 2x's literally in a day, and it's already retraced that whole move back down again. And that was just a couple of months ago. But long term, like into this cycle, Rags, what do you think we can see for this ecosystem, potentially with this SEC thing hanging over our heads? Maybe, maybe not. Will people care? I don't know. I mean, I don't care about it, but what do you think? I mean, I'm not asking for like a price target, but I mean, how optimistic are you on this ecosystem as far as what it could do price wise than you may have been 3 months ago prior to the SEC, the beginning of the SEC thing?
Well, I mean, so we actually can look at something. We can look at XRP. I remember shorting XRP when the SEC stuff came out, and I made a killing on that. But here's the difference between XRP and Hex and PulseChain and PulseX and all that. XRP was primarily traded on centralized exchanges. Okay, right. And Hex is in PulseChain, PulseX. It's all DEX. Okay, and it's not like people had a massive affinity towards us in the first place. So it's like the people that are going to be the people that are here are they've got money sidelined. I think that when the bull market shows back up, I think that we certainly take off with the rest of the markets. We would massively outperform XRP in the same situation. I've got no doubt about that. The other thing that's important here is because we're an EVM chain, we're able to, we have these pairings of Pulse and Ethereum on Uniswap on Ethereum. Okay, so Rat Pulse. So we know that Hart's Law is a real thing because we've seen it play out. SEC FUD, yeah, everybody, the entire ecosystem got wrecked because they're all paired in Rat Pulse. But when Ethereum's pumping, it's going to also pull PulseChain up with it. Okay, just by the market processes and arbitrage and all that, it's going to be rising. And we also have wrap versions. We have WETH on PulseChain as well. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think we're going to have a substantial amount of slowdown. Certainly, there's going to be some in the equation, but we can retrace the all-time highs for PulseChain in a matter of weeks, literally. And who knows? Maybe old Richard has something up his sleeve here. Who knows? But yeah, so I don't think it's going to be as bad as people might think it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's something that we need to remember. Like, even I was just thinking the other day, and I mean, nobody's really in a positive mindset right now, so it's very hard to get yourself there. But yeah. As far as like the lows of this ecosystem, so we had right after the announcement on July 31st, the next day, which was a Tuesday, that's when we first had PulseChain the whole way down to 4 zeros and 3.3, I think it was, the actual Pulse token. And then we were just revisiting that here a couple of weeks ago. Well, how quickly we forget, like we had this little rally, if you even want to call it that, up over 4 zeros and a 4 again. We've been hanging out over there. I mean, that was a quick move to hopefully a new now level of support that we've been at now for a week or two. So you're right. I think it just shows that like we do forget because hell, we've all been depressed for 2 years now. So you do forget what green candles do look like, but you do also forget how quickly these things can move. And to like what you just said, I mean, to get it back to all-time highs, that from here is what, like a 4 to 5x or something like that.
It's nothing, and PulseChain was really, really heavy. There's a lot of money sacrificed. And I'm gonna say this, and I don't say this in a braggadocious way, but things like the SEC news, and then things like my stream with the lawyer, those sorts of things shook a lot of people out that would otherwise would have dumped price at some point in the future, or dumped on everybody when we were pumping. Whales, nothing against whales. You're a whale. You got in when you were supposed to, and you held when you were supposed to, maybe. But they're the ones that destroy price the most. It's not the guppies. It's not the shrimps. It's not the little guys. It's pretty much dolphins and up. They're the ones who wreck price. So I think that we've just about washed most people out, barring any type of news from maybe the Justice Department with some type of charge against Richard for some reason. I don't really see what else could destroy us. I mean, I think that we've moved and we've seen the price action at the bottom of the market kind of indicate that. Shout out to Access Alive. He's crushing it. He provides good alpha, but yeah, everybody's seeing it on the chart. We all see it. So let's just see what happens. This transition period between bear market and bull market, it's sideways chop. It's maybe a 100% pump followed by a 75% correction followed by a 50% pump. And it's just the grind. It's the grind. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's rough.
What do you, last question on PulseChain, then Ewok, I want to let you, we're going to talk a little bit about TEXAN token here as well. What do you make of some of the recent capitulation? And if you don't want to offer much of an opinion on the whole Atropa, PDI thing, that's fine. Yeah. It's your prerogative. But what do you think of some of the capitulation just kind of time-wise with things right now? I don't know if this guy's just a troll. I don't even know if the picture on his profile is real, but I can't get this Brandon B guy out of my feed on Twitter. I think Ewok, you've got him muted, you said.
Yep,
I don't know what it is, but Jesus Christ, does he piss me off. It's just something about the way real low T energy. I don't know what it is, but it really is frustrating when I see his tweets. So I need to mute him too. That's just something I have to do. But like just the bitching constantly, it's what I cannot stand. And then like complaining about Richard Hart and stuff like that. And then people actually like reinforce what he's saying in the comments. I'm just like, dude, I got to mute the guy. But, some of the things we're seeing, regardless of where the capitulation is going, people are getting involved in some of the meme coins and everything going on with Atropa, and there's all kinds of stuff. I'm not hating on it at all. If people want to trade on PulseChain, that's totally fine. But I'm curious of, just the people that are capitulating right now, whether it's into Phantom, Solana, and Crow, as Brandon B, I believe, was, or whatever else. I mean, what do you think about that? And
in terms of Brandon B, for example, I remember, when Twitter Spaces first came out, Hexkins did a really, really good job to kind of take the bull by the horns. We were some of the first communities that got in there and had a lot of participation. I remember Brandon coming in. I think he has a pretty good following on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, and he was asking some smart questions and this and that. And, no offense to anybody here, but dude, I use my mute button all the time. And it's like, it's like first offense. And that's because social media can just get in your head really, really easy. And I'm on it so much that I just can't afford to get in moods. But, in my opinion with him, I think that the spotlight is constantly on him, and he's using that to get the spotlight, and it's just a tactic. I don't think that somebody would be that upset for so long. I think that he's probably just he's just getting the spotlight. He's stirring stuff up, and that's just what it is. That's how he rolls. A lot of people do that. In terms of capitulation or like Atropa, I've spent tons and tons of time and lots of Twitter Spaces and on stream with lots of folks who are really studied when it comes to Atropa and the 414 address and all that sort of thing. I would definitely say that it is very intriguing. Okay. I would also, I'm the type of guy that I don't have faith. Okay. I don't want to have too much faith when it comes to my money. I know that people are going to get involved in these sorts of things. And my advice has always been, if you're going to get involved in it, just don't nuke your account. That's the only job that you have in a bear market. Don't nuke your account. I know I'm not going to stop you from doing it. Just use a small amount and you might get some outsized returns with it. But it is very interesting what's happening with it. I think that Hex and PulseChain and the community are suffering from a vacuum for Richard not being there. And what you're seeing is people filling the vacuum. Okay, so you've got influencers being born in the bear market, and you got folks putting their opinion out there, and you got really upset people, and you're just seeing this all kind of play out, this social experiment right now, as PulseChain comes into play, where it's a layer 2 community now turning into a layer 1 community, and there's a lot of growing pains with that. I knew that was going to happen from the start. It was going to be a very, very difficult transition. So I think we're finding our new footing as it's almost like it's like you got off the Mayflower and now you're in a new land, PulseChain, and you got to go settle. and people are creating factions and all this sort of stuff's happening, but it's natural. It's normal. I think there will be a lot more clarity in the community when Richard's able to come back and speak on these things.
Yeah, I agree too. And the one thing I've noticed as well is without Richard, you don't have that voice saying, no, that's garbage. Stay away from it. Instead, you have these people saying, well, it might be Richard. Maybe he's behind this. And then you have these people back here that are still preaching the RH, methodology, saying, no, it's not, it's a trap. It's dangerous. Probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So you're getting both sides, and it's just a big tug of war that I'm seeing constantly.
It is. It's a war, man. And it's hard. It really is hard to tell because somebody, there are some interesting things that are happening with it. And I just have to be honest and straightforward with it. I've never shilled it. Okay. I've never said that. But what I told people is I'm going to be intellectually honest. I'm going to take a hard, deep look at it. I don't understand why they're doing some of the things that they're doing for the benefit, it seems, of these PRC 20s. But at the same time, we don't know who's behind it. I even used the word atropa. If you look up the definition of atropa, that's a little disturbing too. So it's just all these little things. But guys, just don't nuke yourself. I would stack PulseChain. I'd be stacking, PulseX right now. Those are the things that are going to have longevity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Ewok, you want to get into some TEXAN token?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it.
So I don't know if you want to get into TEXAN first, but the main question I had, and this is more of a observation question. I feel like when you and Matt Crypto Heartbeat, when you guys created this, I felt like you didn't get a whole lot of flack for it. Meanwhile, the community was attacking pretty much every hexagon that came out with their own thing. And I don't know if maybe that was just a background thing. Maybe it was because of the reputation that you guys had as good dudes. Was there attacks in the background maybe that we didn't see? And, what's your opinion on that? Or am I missing the whole thing?
No, it's we definitely got attacked. We definitely got attacked in a lot of ways, but to be honest, I didn't realize. So let's take it back a little bit. Let's take it back. I get into Hex and PulseChain and PulseX. I've got an existing community. I get into this community in like 2021, early 2021. I'd been watching Richard in 2020. I hadn't gotten involved because I didn't trust him. It took a while for me to trust the guy. Ended up onboarding my folks into this. And I remember that when I got in, got Hex and this and that, and I'm excited. Everybody's making money. It feels great. And got into the smart contract. It's cool. And then he starts talking about PulseChain. And I said, wait, what's PulseChain? He's creating a layer 1. Are you kidding me? This is so cool. And I specifically remember him saying, I can't wait to see what cool things that Hexagons build for PulseChain. Okay. So in a way, I said, that'd be really cool to help build on PulseChain. That would be really neat. Crypto Heartbeat contacts me and he kind of pitches me this idea. And I said, dude, that's awesome. We can, be one of the plank holders. We can get into Genesis PulseChain here and we can be one of the builders for PulseChain. And I was so excited. I really didn't have the context of all the pain and suffering that Hexagons went through up until that point with how many people scammed them. I knew about it. I knew about it surface level, but I certainly wasn't connected to it emotionally because I wasn't around.
Sure.
So, when we came out with TEXAN, man, it was like, I remember coming out with TEXAN and then within 2 hours I had a wanted picture on Twitter and people are asking me to come on their stream so they could just bash me, this and that. I think that part of this had to do with, the money that was collected for TEXAN never passed through my hands or Crypto Heartbeat's hands. I think that's a big thing.
Okay.
It was donated all to 100% to a nonprofit. So there wasn't any amount of money that we were hoarding for ourselves or anything like that. I think that we did the right thing because we built the project had it audited and put on testnet the day that we announced it. That's huge too. Okay, so we're just kind of trying to take away the potential FUD that people would have. And we weren't asking people to trust us. We were just saying, if you want to support this cool cause, then go support it. And if not, that's fine too. And I remember saying many times, I said, hey, listen, TEXAN is much more risky than Hex. Hex has been around and it's been battle tested. Don't even look at us. Or we don't want you involved if you don't want to be involved. And I was just very honest and straightforward like that. So I tried to do everything honest. Crypto Heartbeat tried to do everything honest. We were straightforward with the community, and you know, maybe what are y'all's opinions? Like, what did you see? Why did you not come after me?
Well, first of all, my opinion was both of you were pretty stand-up dudes from everything I had seen. I have a pretty good judge of character. I was in from the beginning, listening to Richard before Hex even launched. So, there was that time where I had the chance to hear from him and be able to trust him.
Sure.
And then when you guys came on the scene, you got both of you, like I said, you just appeared to be very trustworthy guys. I didn't think you were taking anything from this. I thought it was a great idea, and for a cause that was pretty cool. Now, will Texas ever secede from the, whatever? Who knows if that ever happens? I don't know,
right.
But I just thought it was a noble cause, and you guys weren't really making anything from it. So that's why I was, I supported it. I got my free claim. I staked it all out for 22 years. So, hopefully I'm around to get it at someday, but but no, I thought it was a great thing. And if you want to tell, our listeners, because I don't know, maybe some of them don't know what it is, but if you want to give your little elevator pitch of what TEXAN is, you'll do a better job than I will to explain it.
Yeah. So Crypto Heartbeat, he has experience in the nonprofit, scene for the better part of 25 years. And he wanted to create an endowment on the blockchain. Okay, so what is an endowment? An endowment is basically a way to put away funds, investment funds, and then be able to work off of the yield that's generated off of that principle. So we created the contract to reflect what organizations were used to when it came to endowments. And I say that not loosely. We contact nonprofit organizations and we say, hey, you have a membership of 100,000 or greater. You have the infrastructure already in place. You have these no coiners. Hey, let us come in and we'll tokenize your entire community for you. Okay. So I think that's really, really big for adoption. I think that you're going to see more and more of this in the next 5 years. It's not really talked about that much, but you're going to see lots of tokenizing communities, enterprise level, nonprofits, all sorts, towns, cities, whatever. That's going to happen. You'll see it. So what we did was tokenize the community. And obviously these are no coiners, huge challenges there, but they're on PulseChain. I think half of the donation funds, out of 1,835 donations, I think half of which were from the TNM, which was the organization that we did. We onboarded those folks on, and it's actually a very simple contract. Okay, so we took what Richard said. Richard said, if you're going to build something this day and age, then you better have some sort of yield programmed into it. So we programmed yield. Richard said that if you're going to make something this day and age, you better make sure that it doesn't have an inflation bug. So we don't have inflation built in. It's actually deflationary. So you have a very simple base interest rate of 5% per year. Okay, 5% per year. No bigger pays better or anything like that. Longer pays better. So if you lock it up, every year you get a multiplier that you hold that simulates compounding interest. And the biggest feature about this is really that simple. The biggest feature is the ability to scrape your interest that you've accrued. So, if you want to scrape your interest, if it's a 10-year stake and you want to scrape, the accumulated interest, maybe it's 50 or 60% after 5 years total, you can go ahead and scrape that and you can use it for whatever you want. The stake time doesn't restart. The interest ticker does restart. So you'll get whatever's left. You'll get 5 more years of interest when your stake matures. And it's really it's that simple. There is no T-share system. There's nothing else. We wanted to make it as simple as possible to be able to onboard organizations in the future. And that's what we did.
Very cool.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense what you're saying about tokenizing of communities and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, you can, not that it necessarily is an NFT, but I mean, I think some NFTs, we've seen that as an eventuality with those. So yeah, I 100% see where you're coming from with that. And I think it will be duplicatable. And to your question, yeah, I think Ewok speaks for both of us. Like, you guys, first off, both of you were very public. So, I mean, that's one thing I think that definitely helps a lot. Just seeing somebody, the longer, we now have hours of us out here just shooting the shit on this show and stuff like that. You can kind of get a vibe for what somebody is like through video. A lot of us, I feel like I could probably, like I know Joe Rogan personally, I think at this point, you know what I mean? With how much, we've listened to him over the years. But yeah, there's so many crypto creators that are so erratic, like just kind of their behavior and stuff like that. There's plenty of people that give out like super red flags to stay away. So obviously that's not the case with you guys. So
yeah. Cool. So, I mean, I guess that's your answer, just all those reasons. And we've stuck around with the community when many people have disappeared. Because we really do care about PulseChain. We don't see any other place other than PulseChain as our home, quite frankly.
So if I remember correctly, you guys were going to launch PulseChain because it didn't come out. You put it on Ethereum first, right?
Yeah. We put it on Ethereum. We waited for as long as we possibly could because we did have some consideration with the nonprofit organization. So we went ahead and launched on Ethereum first for that reason. But we waited we were ready to launch right after PulseChain was supposed to launch in May, of what, 2022.
Okay. That's what I thought. I was going to say, it's been like a long time for you guys, I think.
we were on testnet almost a year, maybe like 10 months. And we were ready to go, just waiting for PulseChain. So,
and then you got your free copy. So
got your free copy.
Yeah. Cool.
Better early than still not yet.
Right.
Speaking of some of those new products, Ewok, you want to ask about the PH ecosystem?
Yeah, last question I had was your thoughts on the whole PH, the fiats, the other one. What do you think? Do you think the haters are really going to take advantage of shorting Hex and Pulse, or do you think it's all talk? Like, what's your thoughts and your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, I think first off, I think that the builders are definitely the backbone of any type of adoption moving forward on PulseChain. So I would say that anybody that brings a unique, innovative product on PulseChain should be praised for it. So I'm appreciative of that. We want to be as good horizontally or vertically than anybody else out there. Yeah. So we want to be as good as Ethereum, that we have to have Ethereum's products. And that's what we have here. To answer your question about, will the haters short? The haters are going to short and the lovers are going to short. Okay. Because we know human behavior. Yeah. And it's like people say one thing on Twitter and their fingers in the background on the desktop does another thing. So we know that's going to happen. Yeah. But ultimately, it's a huge positive for Hex. It's huge positive for PulseChain. And they're going to be around a while. It's their whole ecosystem is important for what we have going on.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it's great. Like you said, the more people building, the more products that we have that Ethereum has, the more people that can come over and have a much better experience because the fees are just so much better.
Yeah. It's a great experience right now for sure.
And those guys just getting all the PH products out now too. I mean, they've really been the strongest ones out of the gate since Pulse has launched to get everything to market, which is awesome. And then we just get news today that Liquid Loans says they are launching in October, which has kind of been the one that everybody's been clamoring about. So that's kind of our last question. Like, what do you make of that? Because I mean, and I asked that on two fronts. Like, number one, people have been waiting with bated breath for this for forever. But also, a lot of these projects are wanting to launch when the green candles are coming or towards the end of this whole thing. And I wonder if maybe they are reading the tea leaves here as far as doing this in October, because pretty much everybody and their brother was saying like, hey, September is going to be the bleed out month. That's when everything's going to go to hell. And then, after that, things are going to move upward. So, yeah, what do you make of the timing on that?
Well, I think that there's a couple things to consider. I think the first thing you got to consider is they're kind of legally, from an SEC standpoint, they're legally bound to launch in the first place, right? They collected money. If they don't do what they say they're going to do, then it gets weird. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is, I think some of the conversation we had earlier, and we're talking about the markets and how depressed they've been and how we've had like 2 capitulation events. They're looking for the bottom because ultimately they don't want, liquid loans, for example, doesn't want people getting wrecked with their first experience with liquid loans. So I think that they're sensing that there's not a tremendous more amount of downside and they wanted to launch at the bottom. First off, they said, maybe about 2 months or when volatility dies down. So I think we've seen volatility die down at this point. We're kind of chopping back and forth in the channel right now. And again, we're in the bear market doldrums. And then we've got the happening in the future here that may or may not pump the crypto markets. We're in a really bad macroeconomic situation right now that we haven't been in since 2008. So we'll see what effect that has. But I think that they think everything's pretty much towards the bottom now. And that's where we're at.
I think so too. This fourth quarter, and I mean, we've all been saying this for so long, but I mean, like right now, towards the end of the year, I am treating this window as like the train leaving the station after that. So, I mean, me personally, anyway, as much as I can get into the market, not that I haven't already been doing that, but as much as I can get into the market over this quarter, whether it's taking advances or whatever, to make sure I get it in this quarter rather than waiting into 2024, I think is going to be really important. So
yeah, it gets kind of up in the air in 2024. There's a lot of bullish things that could happen in 2024.
Right. Yeah, definitely excited to flip the calendar to a new year. I mean, we were after 2022 also, and this year has been objectively better. I mean, like it's hard, lest we forget. I mean, we didn't even have PulseChain at the time. The markets overall have been much better despite people still calling for 12K. This has been a better year. Believe it or not, people, this has been better than 2022. So anyway, I think that's all we've got. Rags, yeah, just mad respect to you for coming on the stream. We really wanted to, you are, I think we both consider you one of the best minds in this community, and especially with a lot of the legal stuff. We really appreciate, your viewpoint on all that and your acumen as far as that goes. And, we appreciate you coming on the stream. I'm sure the viewers did as well. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Dude, awesome, man. And again, I'm honored. I don't take it lightly. Don't take it for granted. So thank you very much, man. And I'll be happy to come on anytime.
Cool.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, hey, again, we do this every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Crypto Ewok, Rags to Riches. This has been Boi Crypto. We'll catch you guys right here next week on the Creed of Crypto podcast. Take it easy, guys.